When women reach old age, they begin to despise their husbands. And there are profound emotional reasons behind this phenomenon. Is it ever a mystery to you why older ladies tend to become emotionally distant from their husbands? The topic is one that is discussed in hushed tones, but it is rarely spoken aloud. A number of expressions, such as, "she's just tired," or, "they've been married for too long," will be discussed, but the truth is more profound and more genuine than the majority of people are aware of. Women of a certain age start to view their marriages with fresh views as they become older. A decade's worth of routines, silence, and unbalance are brought into sharp relief. A remarkable range of feelings is evoked in many people as a result of this. Feelings of grief, indignation, disappointment, and even animosity in some cases. In the following video, we are going to discuss 6 significant reasons why some women, as they become older, start to feel resentment or even hatred against their husbands. Not to be confused with minor disagreements or personality conflicts. These are not. The emotional weight that has been quietly borne for years is the subject of these emotions. All of the reasons, from emotional neglect to wordless tiredness, have their origins in our own personal experiences. You are not dreaming things if you have ever recognized that there is a growing distance between you and your partner. Or if you have ever wondered why your wife appears to be different now. It is important that you remain with us until the very end because the final reason may enlighten you in a manner that you had not anticipated. Relationships are not the only topic at hand here. What matters is that you are finally recognized, heard, and comprehended. Let's get started. The first reason is that the burden of emotional effort becomes indisputable evidence. As women get older, there is a change that starts to take place. In the past, people were able to dismiss, but today they can see things more clearly. And one of the things that is most obvious is the amount of emotional labor that they have carried over the course of the years. Many women have been the ones to remember birthdays, schedule doctor's appointments, manage the children, mediate disagreements, and notice when anything seemed amiss for decades. They have also been the ones to remember when something felt off. It wasn't merely a matter of cleanup. This was the labor that was done behind the scenes to keep things together. Initially, it might have appeared natural, and it might have even been anticipated. On the other hand, the weight piles up with time. In addition, after the children have reached adulthood and life has slowed down, many women start to realize how one-sided the emotional investment they have made on their children has been. Whether the husband was cruel or careless is not always the case. The problem is that he just did not take into account how much she was holding. Also, when you reach your 60s or 70s, you begin to ask different questions than you did before. Oh, why was it that I was the one who was always worried? What happened to him that he never learned how to deal with this aspect of our lives? It is not resentment that is the source of these ideas. It is tiredness, a silent exhaustion that lasts for a long time. That causes them. Consider a lady who goes by the name of Carol. Her age is now 74. Most of the time during her marriage, she was in charge of everything. She was the one who was responsible for remembering to refill medications, calling the grandchildren, planning the holidays, and calming down any conflicts that arose within the family. Tom, her husband, was someone who frequently told her, "You're just better at that stuff." But Carol has come to the conclusion that it was not a compliment. A dismissal was the result. He never made an attempt. And now she harbors a profound resentment toward that. The emotional work that is being done is frequently not spoken about. Consequently, there is no remuneration for it. There is no card of gratitude. The tone of a marriage is influenced by it. However, additionally, when that labor is not acknowledged or shared, it gradually wears someone down if they are not. The majority of wives do not experience a sense of intimacy with their spouses by the time they reach retirement age. They are worn down by them by now. It is not about assigning blame. The key is to have an understanding. It is imbalanced in a relationship when one person in the relationship is responsible for all of the emotional tending. And as one gets older, it becomes increasingly difficult to ignore that imbalance. It wasn't because the woman had changed, rather, it was because she had finally discovered the change. She had been holding it all for a very long time. The following topic that we will discuss is what occurs when the conversation becomes less intense and the emotional connection begins to wane. Not with a commotion, but with a lack of sound. A second reason is that genuine communication is gradually deteriorating. The events do not take place all at once. It is precisely because of this that it is so difficult to see. However, over the course of time, genuine discussion between partners may gradually evaporate. The only things that remain are routines, interactions at the surface level, and daily logistics. Instances such as, "Have you taken your medication?" Also, "What would you like to eat for dinner?" On the other hand, the more profound aspects, such as the laughter, the dreams, and the checking in, begin to diminish. This quiet can become deafening for a great number of women, particularly those who are in their 70s and beyond. The desire to have lengthy, intense conversations every night is not the issue. Being noticed is the goal here. If you want to feel that your inner world is still important to someone, you need to do this. When something is no longer present, a sense of calm loneliness begins to take hold. When someone is seated right next to you, it is still possible. Grief is a peculiar emotion to experience. There is no death that you are mourning. You feel a sense of loss since you no longer have a connection with a person who is still living. Even worse, with someone who was previously aware of how to get in touch with you, or at the very least, made an attempt. However, over the course of many years, when those conversations never come up again, something becomes more rigid, rather than all at once, but gradually, in the same way as dust accumulates in a spot that no one bothers to sweep. Let's chat about Joyce, shall we? 79 years old, Frank and she have been married for more than half a century. They consume the same meals, watch the same shows, and sit in the same seats throughout the day. On the other hand, she is unable to recall the last time he inquired about how she was actually doing. It is not her joints, specifically, her blood pressure. It is she. Her anticipation is not for poetry, but she is lacking in her interest. She longs for the sensation that someone is concerned about what is going on inside of her. On the other hand, Frank is of the opinion that there is nothing wrong. In his opinion, they are in a good relationship with one another. There will be no fighting. There is no drama. The thing that he fails to notice, however, is that the warmth is gradually being replaced by the stillness. The fact that Joyce is more of a roommate than a wife to her husband. That she occasionally engages in conversation with the television in order to simply hear her own voice in the room. It is not necessary for women to expect spectacular gestures. The request is to meet them in the center of the road. In order to continue to be spoken to with consideration, inquiry, and kindness. When that is no longer present, a wedge will emerge, because of what is not being said, rather than because of what is being said. However, over the course of time, that wedge might develop into a profound emotional estrangement. I would appreciate it if you could use the second comment section below to let me know that you are continuing viewing this video and that you are finding these insights to be helpful. I strongly suggest that you subscribe to the channel and activate the bell if you have not already done so. This will ensure that you do not miss any videos. With your assistance, we are able to continue producing high-quality content that will both inform and inspire you. Now, let's proceed with our plans. A third reason is that unequal caregiving can lead to animosity that is kept hidden. In the later phases of life, many couples find themselves in the position of providing care for one another. Chronic disorders, memory loss, surgeries, and illnesses can all cause a disruption in the normal rhythm of everyday life. In addition, the woman is frequently the one who takes on the duty of caregiver without inquiry or without hesitation. She acts in this manner out of love, out of habit, and occasionally out of a complete and utter necessity. On the other hand, beneath that silent service, another thing can start to build into resentment at some point. In the beginning, She might not even be aware of it. Everything that needs to be done is simply carried out by her. I am responsible for measuring medicines, assisting with mobility, and driving to appointments. But as time goes on, she begins to experience the weight of it. It is not only the task at hand, but also the imbalance, because she has a recollection of a time when she required assistance, buried deep within her. In addition, it was not always present. When women are caring for their elderly spouses, they frequently do it while simultaneously having to deal with their own health issues. They, too, are exhausted. They suffer from aches and pains, go to the doctor, and have their own anxieties. However, they frequently put those concerns to the side in order to ensure that their partner is doing well. In addition, although some men show their profound gratitude, others don't give much of a response at all. When they make the assumption, they anticipate it. Also, that unstated assumption has a profound impact. Take Margaret, who is 82 years old. At the age of 76, her husband, Bill, suffered a stroke. Since that time, Margaret has been providing him with care on a daily basis, by assisting him with bathing, managing his meds, and preparing each and every meal. While she is in love with him, she is exhausted. It's not the work that makes her feel so deeply sad. The memories of her own operation, which took place many years ago, when she asked Bill to cook or clean for only 1 week. He moaned the entire time, but she continued to ask him to do it. Now, she couldn't possibly forget that. It is not the act of providing care that is the source of the resentment. The historical events that came before it are the source of this. The time when she was strong for him, but he was not strong for her. That was the moment. The manner in which she adapted, accommodated, and was willing to compromise, whereas he remained unchanged. During old age, when roles change and the need for caregiving arises, those memories come back to the surface, not as rage, but rather as an ache that is slowly building up. Discussion of this topic is not simple. Just thinking about it makes a lot of women feel guilty. I am curious as to whether or not this makes me a bad person. The response is not yes. It is what makes you human. It indicates that you have contributed a great deal, perhaps more than your fair share, and it is perfectly acceptable to feel the weight of that. It is entirely acceptable to call attention to the disparity, particularly when it has been neglected for decades. In the following paragraph, we will discuss the consequences that arise when appreciation is no longer there, not only in large-scale events, but also in the mundane, everyday activities that are more significant than most people realize. The fourth reason is that a lifetime without experience of appreciation can be taxing. When the years pass, there is something that begins to hurt more than it did before. And that is the sensation of being unappreciated. You can't expect it to happen overnight. Slowly, day by day, year by year, it is gradually accumulating. In addition, by the time many women reach their 60s or 70s, it becomes increasingly difficult for them to ignore the emptiness that they feel. They did not require continuous praise or acclaim. That is not the case. Specifically, they required a sense of being seen. There is a lot that women do during their lives that is rarely recognized. They are responsible for the planning of meals, the maintenance of the family calendar, the remembrance of birthdays, the writing of thank you letters, the washing of sheets, the management of schedules, and the work that goes on behind the scenes to keep things running smoothly. Furthermore, when that work is never acknowledged, it can gradually give the impression that it was never important. At first, it might have been sufficient to know that she was being appreciated once in a while. Or perhaps she chose to ignore it because she believed that this was the way things were. Nevertheless, after decades of giving without making a fuss, it begins to feel less like love and more like things are being taken for granted. Lorraine, who is 77 years old, she had been married to John for more than half a century. She was John's support system through every career move and family bereavement. Yet she was also responsible for raising 3 children, working part-time, and making every holiday special. On the other hand, John rarely expressed gratitude, not because he was malicious, but more because he presumed that she would be present at all times. And now that she is retired, Lorraine is experiencing feelings of anger, not as a result of a single significant occurrence, but rather as a result of a lifetime of being silently ignored. There is no need for a theatrical display of appreciation. I notice how hard you're working. Or I don't say this enough. But thank you, are both examples of simple expressions that can be used. Love begins to feel more like a necessary obligation when those words never come. And responsibility that is not accompanied by gratitude wears a person down. When they reach their latter years, many women start to think about their lives. What they contributed and what they received in return is something that they ask themselves. When the answer appears to be unbalanced, it gives rise to a kind of melancholy that is difficult to put into words. Others refer to it as regret. Some people refer to it as disappointment. However, at its core, it is a yearning to have been of significance, not only in the role of a wife or mother, but also in the role of a person. When this feeling is not expressed, it might result in a sense of detachment, a silent hardness, and a retreat of warmth. Not hatred, but hurt is what it is, and it has been expanding without anyone noticing for years. I would appreciate it if you could use the fourth comment section below to let me know that you are continuing viewing this video and that you are finding these insights to be helpful. I strongly suggest that you subscribe to the channel and activate the bell if you have not already done so. This will ensure that you do not miss any videos. With your assistance, we are able to continue producing high-quality content that will both inform and inspire you. Now, let's proceed with our plans. Lastly, the gradual loss of one's individuality and identity is the fifth reason. The passage of time causes many women to develop a more critical perspective on their life as they reflect on the past. One of the things that they frequently encounter is the realization of how much of themselves they have sacrificed along the road. It is not because they were coerced into doing so, but rather because they believe that family and love need them to do so. They decided to give up their hopes, their careers, their interests, their friendships, and even their own voices at times. This loss begins to feel more burdensome than it ever has before as one gets older. Growing up, you have a lot of things to do. You have duties that are pulling you in every direction, including children to raise, bills to pay, dinners to prepare, and other obligations. It is not always possible for you to pause and ask yourself, what is it that I want? Nevertheless, when things begin to settle down, when the children are gone and the house is quiet, that question returns to the forefront. Also, the response can be excruciating for certain women. They have come to the realization that they have spent decades supporting the journey of another individual while discreetly abandoning their own destiny. In the past, they might have had the desire to write, paint, travel, or return to school, but these aspirations were never prioritized over other things. The person they used to be is buried behind years of providing care for others, making concessions, and putting the needs of others ahead of their own. One should consider Eleanor. Her age is now 75. Her passion for music began when she was a child. She had the intention of becoming a music instructor, but life intervened. At the age of 22, she tied the knot with her husband, reared 4 children, and worked part-time to assist with the financial burdens. When the children were younger, her husband pushed her to stay at home with them, but later on, he stated that they did not have the financial means to pay for courses. Now that she is sitting in a peaceful living room, Eleanor is pondering what might have transpired if she had simply declined an offer every once in a while. It is not appropriate to point the finger at anyone else if she had prioritized herself at least a few times. There was no rage or harshness on the part of her spouse to stop her. He just never inquired about what she wanted, and she stopped inquiring about it as well. Nevertheless, the outcome is the same. She has the impression that she is a stranger in her own life, who is defined more by the parts she has performed than by the person she is. and when you have the impression that the requirements of another person have consumed your existence. It is difficult to avoid feeling resentful. It is not because you did not love them, rather, it is because you have lost yourself at some point in time. When women reach their senior years, when they finally have the opportunity to take a breath, they also begin to recover aspects of themselves. On occasion, however, the spouse who is standing next to them is unable to deal with the situation. They are accustomed to things remaining in the same manner. Also, it can be a source of conflict when a woman begins to say, no, establish boundaries, or engage in activities that are solely for her own benefit. It is not true that she is acting in a self-centered manner. Currently, she is recollecting who she is, and there are instances when that memory is accompanied by feelings of rage, grief, or even hatred, not only for the things that were lost, but also for the fact that the person who was closest to her was unable to perceive those losses. In the last part of this discussion, we will investigate what occurs when one partner chooses to go through the motions of aging while the other continues to develop, and the way in which that distinction can subtly develop a chasm that cannot be repaired by words alone. The sixth reason is that there are various approaches to aging and personal development. When people become older, they experience changes, although not always in the same way. Moreover, one of the most challenging aspects for many women of a more advanced age is witnessing their husbands give up trying. Not only physiologically, but also for emotional reasons. When women reach their older years, they may choose to pursue new interests, learn new things, reflect on their lives, or create deeper relationships. However, their spouses may begin to withdraw from them. They take a seat in the recliner chairs. It is no longer important to them what they consume, how they feel, or how they present themselves in the relationship. At first glance, it would appear to be a leisurely break, a respite that has been deserved after decades of hard effort. With the passage of time, however, it begins to feel like a resignation, as if one were given up. Women who are still developing, who are still curious, and who are still emotionally alive may experience a sense of abandonment as a result of this inactivity. It has nothing to do with things like taking dance classes or going skydiving. Being in the moment, maintaining engagement, and demonstrating that you continue to care about living a life with a purpose are all important. When a woman looks across the table and sees a man who has emotionally checked down, she does not get a sense of serenity. It has the sensation of being alone. I'd want to take Susan, 73 years old. A short while ago, she became a member of a reading club, resumed her painting passion, and started going for morning walks. Richard, her spouse, is a couch potato who spends the majority of his days sitting in front of the television. He is constantly complaining about his knees. He disregards the advice of the doctor, and he shows no interest in anything that is not part of his routine. Susan does not despise him because of his advanced age. She feels resentment toward him because he has ceased making an effort, because he has stopped meeting her halfway, and because he considers her efforts to be extra rather than important. Old age presents many women with a second chance, a window of opportunity to recapture what they have previously neglected. However, they are unable to move on because their husband does not want to develop with them. Over time, being trapped can develop into a source of aggravation. As frustration grows, distance grows as well. Furthermore, this remoteness can give the impression that the relationship is slowly dying out. The issue is not limited to health alone either. The mentality is the key. Certain males are resistant to change at every turn, engaging in emotionally charged conversations, avoiding reflection, and dismissing anything that prompts them to open themselves are all things that they do. This may have been something that could be tolerated in the past, but as one gets older, it finally becomes intolerable. It is more difficult to feel connected when time is perceived as being more valuable and superficial. Women in many of these marriages do not want to leave their partners, but they do desire something more from their relationships. They want to be greeted while making an effort and being present. They continue to bring the same vitality and curiosity to the table that they brought before them. Not only do they experience disappointment, but they also experience a sense of isolation when that does not occur. Within the context of a marriage, with a partner who continues to sleep next to them, but who no longer makes physical contact with them, I would appreciate it if you could use the 6th comment section below to let me know that you are continuing viewing this video and that you are finding these insights to be helpful. I strongly suggest that you subscribe to the channel and activate the bell if you have not already done so. This will ensure that you do not miss any videos. With your assistance, we are able to continue producing high-quality content that will both inform and inspire you. Let's proceed with our plans now. Lastly, some thoughts. In the event that you have made it this far, please take a time to reflect on everything that you have just been told. Each of these 6 reasons is not about resentment or assigning blame. The truth, the silent truth, the truth that many women have been keeping inside for years is the subject of these. In addition, even if they might not always express it verbally, they are aware of it profoundly in their bodies, in their hearts, and in the pauses that occur between discussions that were once significant. What did you find to be the most noteworthy? Could it have been the emotional labor that was lacking recognition? Are you referring to the years of silence that have replaced meaningful relation? On the other hand, the gradual revelation that a portion of who you are has been buried at some point in your life. There is more to this film than just the reasons why wives start to despise their husbands as they become older. The story is about what occurs when love is not cultivated, when appreciation is forgotten, and when effort is removed from the equation. How much does it cost to go unnoticed for an excessive amount of time? It is also an opportunity, a chance to contemplate, to re-establish connections, and to make repairs if they are still feasible. In addition, even if it isn't, it is an opportunity to affirm the feelings that were never named. To admit that this did have place and that it was significant. It is acceptable for you to not feel well. You are permitted to have feelings of betrayal. In addition, you are permitted to desire happiness, connection, and recognition even at this very now, particularly currently. We appreciate you being here with us today. It would be wonderful if you could get in touch with us. Please leave a comment below and tell us about one item you discovered today and how you intend to put it to use in your life right now. Your ideas and opinions are very important to us. Therefore, do not be reluctant to share them. Our inspiration and encouragement are greatly increased as a result of reading your remarks. I would appreciate it if you would like, subscribe, and share this video if you found it to be informative and enjoyable. With your assistance, we are able to continue producing high-quality content that will both inform and inspire you. We appreciate you taking the time to watch, and we hope to see you in the future video.